This is your Budaba TV, Hakudima CV, Sly Media Tv, and this sport and dream streeting as own and up a news in Daka wonder name of Vusi, Sly Media Tv, Mandi Chinjra Angma Dream.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special Twitter Spaces conversation with Vice President of the Citizens Coalition for Change, also known with the acronym CC, and he's also the former Zimbabwean Finance Minister. His name is Sly Biti. Yesterday, we saw the launch of the Citizens Coalition for Change, led by Nelson Chamisa, to a great global fanfare. We went to bed last night and woke up to the color yellow trending and splashed everywhere on social media. The color yellow represents an identification of the Citizens Coalition for Change. A lot of you have many questions to ask about the Citizens Coalition for Change. Sly Biti is here to answer those questions, but before he does that, he will first talk to us about this new Citizen Coalition, why it came into being, and where it is meant to take Zimbabweans. Thank you for coming to talk to us, Vice President Sly Biti. Welcome, and the floor is yours. Unmute the microphone, and you can start talking.
Good. Mkoma Hopo. Good evening to, I see literally thousands of people on this platform. I'm very excited because this is the first time that I've participated as a speaker. I've been an innocent bystander on this platform. I think yesterday, the 24th of January 2022 will go down as one of the most historic days in the history of the struggle of the working people of Zimbabwe for a just, a democratic, inclusive, and transformative society. I've absolute no doubt in my mind that this date will occupy the same space that many other historic days occupy in our including our own independence on the 18th of April 1980. It goes down as well with historic days such as 11 November 1965, Ian Smith's obnoxious declaration, unilateral declaration of independence, of course, 1963 when ZANU was formed. The critical question is, why did the citizen form this a movement? And I think to understand 2022, one must go back to the past, to 2008, 2009. On the 26th of February, 1999, the working people of Zimbabwe gathered at the Women's Bureau in Harare, organized by the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, at the National Working People's Convention. There were thousands of Zimbabweans from all walks of life, represented by civic society in the form of the church, in the form of NGOs, human rights organizations, lawyers organizations, grassroots organizations, traditional leaders, and war veterans. They came to Harare, organized by the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, and sat for 3 days and came up with 11 resolutions or declarations. The key mischief that the Zimbabweans spoke about way back in 1999 at the National Working People's Convention were, of course, number one, the issue of a broken down social contract, the issue of a status quo in respect of which there was a narrow elite led by ZANU-PF and President Robert Mugabe that had occupied all political space, that had occupied all physical space, that had occupied all moral space, that had essentially captured and privatized Zimbabwe. And in a scenario where the majority of the citizens were marginalized, were pauperized, were essentially third-class citizens in their country, there was a mischief that needed to be addressed, the mischief of exclusion, the mischief of a wrong, rather tired method of engagement between those that hold power and those that were victims or subjects or objects of that power. So the National Working People's Convention, if you look at its agenda and its resolutions, therefore sought to recalibrate a new form of engagement, a new form of dialogue with those that hold power and authority in Zimbabwe. So the first thing that they demanded was an address on the land question. As all of you know, the land question had become such a burning issue, with the ZANU-PF making amazing clamor for it, but without actually acting on it. And some of you will remember the 1996 land reform program, with 700 hectares of land were given and were taken and given to a handful of black professionals. So land back to land to the people was one of the issues that the 1999 National Working People's Convention addressed, the issue of the economy. And remember, 1999 comes 2 years after 14 November 1997. 14 November 97, Black Friday, as some of us call it, is the day that the Zimbabwean currency collapsed by 70%, brought down by the weight of the participation of Zimbabwe in an illegal war in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a war that was costing Zimbabwe the sum of US $1 million a day. And of course, the payouts that had been made to war veterans of 50,000 Zimbabwean dollar each to war veterans. These two things had a cataleptic effect on the Zimbabwean currency, and it collapsed by 70%. And since that day, the Zimbabwean economy has never been the same. It has been on a downward spiral, bar the period during the GNU when we interrupt that downward spiral. And all of you will know that between 1997 and 2008, an 11-year period, the Zimbabwean economy lost 60% of its value in real terms, and we depreciated from modest growth rates, declines of -2% to -14% in that period. Inflation by December of 2008 was 500 billion%, the second highest in the history of mankind, only after Hungary in 1956. So the economy was key at that National Working People's Convention. There were other issues like violence, security sector reform, but the biggest issue that citizens spoke about was the democratic deficit affecting Zimbabwe. People suddenly realized that it was not sufficient to make trade union demands on the state. And many of you will recall that only a few months earlier, before the National Working People's Convention, President Mugabe had responded to calls for a change by the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions by saying to Morgan Tsvangirai and Gibson Sibanda that if you want to form your own political party, form your own political party, and we meet each other in the ballot box. So that was a very arrogant response to genuine requests by citizens to have their issues addressed and to seek a new point of intervention, a new point of engagement, a new consensus, because the old consensus based on legitimacy around the liberation struggle, or more appropriately, participating in a liberation struggle, it failed. And all of you know that even up to now, the yardstick for participation, the measure for participation, the license for participation under ZANU-PF has been whether or not you participated in the liberation struggle. So we remain stuck in the past fighting a war that ended in 1979, 42 years ago. And that war mentality has created three terrible things that are arresting our society in Zimbabwe. And this is true in 1999 when the National Working People's Convention met, and now today, the 25th of January 2022. This is a culture of entitlement in ZANU-PF. They're entitled to governance. They're entitled to steal. They're entitled to get fat contracts because they fought in the War of Liberation. The second trait is the culture of impunity. So you've got entitlement and then you've got impunity. And impunity means we can simply get away with anything. We can simply do anything that we want. They've got literally a 007 agreement. Not a license to kill, but a license to loot. A license, a blank check, as it were. A license to do anything and everything under the sun. And 42 years of independence under ZANU-PF, indeed, they've exercised that blank check. The third component of ZANU, which was true in 1999 and is true now, is what I call the messianic complex. This psychotic, if you like, mindset that we freed this country, therefore no one else can have it. It's only ZANU-PF. It's only ZANU-PF. And right now they're saying ED 2023. ED himself is saying ED 2030. I'll be there. President Mugabe, if you recall some of his birthday interviews on the 20th of February, he would say, I'll be here for a long time. Even his own wife says, you run Zimbabwe from the grave. So you've got this messianic complex. We are the Messiah. We saved you, so you must be totally indebted to us. In the Solomonic parable of the two women who fought over the baby, ZANU-PF would be that woman that says, let's cut the baby in half. If I can't have it, no one else can have it. Not Nelson Chamisa, not Morgan Changirai, not Gibson Sibanda, not Simba Makoni. No one else will have it. So these are the issues which we sought to deal with in 1999. And what was what was the remedy? The remedy was that, number one, let's address the economy. Let's make it more inclusive. Let's have independent courts. Let's have independent institutions. But ultimately, it was resolution number 11, which was the most important. Because resolution number 7, and of course, one of the most important resolutions was the demand for a new constitution. And if you were to take anything from that conference, the demand of a new constitution was key. The demand on land was key. And then this third resolution, which was resolution number 11, which was the mandate given to the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions to form a movement, not a political party, a movement to challenge ZANU-PF's authoritarian hegemony. And as all of you know, ZCT was then given a mandate to consult the working people of Zimbabwe, which they did between January of 1999 to September of 1999. You recall they would go into stadiums like Rufaro, like Baba Fields, and ask workers to show by exclamation what they wanted. And of course, workers chose to form this movement, which movement was then launched at Rufaro Stadium on the 11th of September 1999. That was the formation of the MDC. But over the years, this movement, which was formed by the citizen, which was owned by the citizen, to engage ZANU-PF, to create a new consensus, a new center of gravity with the power, did extremely well in 2000. We got 58 seats out of the contested 120. Those that we lost, we challenged 30 in the courts. We actually won 15 of those. That means that we became the majority party theoretically. But of course, ZANU-PF appealed. By the time that the appeals were to be set, ZANU-PF through Chinamasa, he had fired Chief Justice Anthony Gambi. He had fired virtually every white member of that bench, and they'd reconstituted a new Supreme Court under Godfrey Chijausiku. All our appeals, of course, were dismissed, and the greater damage was to be done in the massive judgments that this court issued, which reversed constitutional gains that had been made by the people of Zimbabwe. So the mass movement, as it grew over the years, it slowly turned into a political party. A political party is territorial. A political party is competitive internally and externally. A political party closes doors. It sees citizens as the competitors. So a political party easily develops contradictions, which then mirror asymmetrically the very same status quo, the very same organization that it is seeking to replace. So very quickly, a political party can metamorphosize into the thing that it is seeking to replace. In other words, it quickly becomes part of the problem as opposed to being part of the solution. So contradictions developed in the movement as it transited from the movement into a political party. A movement has got a huge base. It is owned by the citizens. A political party is not owned by stakeholders. It's not owned by the church. It is not owned by the student movement. It is not owned by the women's movement. It is not owned by the labor movement that forms it. It becomes territorial. It's now owned by structures. It's now owned by individuals. It's now looking at its own immediate existence. And an existential threat to the political party is different from an existential threat to the movement. And part of the contradictions in the movement, of course, were the internal issues, particularly around succession, particularly around factions. And so you see different splits in 2005, different splits in 2013 or 14, 2014, and so forth. And those are arising structurally because the movement is no longer owned by the citizen, but the movement is now owned by constituencies that are not the citizen. So the citizen who sat at the National Working People's Convention is no longer the same citizen who sits in the structures of the citizen. But the regime takes advantage of that. The regime weaponizes the political party against itself. And there's no greater illustration of the weaponization of the political party against itself than the shenanigans around the name. The name MDC became a weapon used by the regime to bash us. The judgment of the Supreme Court of 2019, 30 March 2019, was the ultimate weaponization of that name. So the regime takes advantage of the contradictions inside, creates factions inside, which it captures and it uses to destroy the movement. So since 2020, we have seen the deliberate obliteration of our movement, arising primarily around this name, which became the point of entry in our fights. But ultimately, the challenge was the metamorphosization of the movement into a political party, and the loyalty of the new political party to narrow sectorial interests which are tangential to the original interest of the movement. And so in the last 2 years, we've seen unprecedented attacks on the party. We have lost our party head office. we lost the members of parliament, we lost the party offices across the length and breadth of the country, we lost political funding which we're entitled to in terms of the Political Finance Act. We lost cadres, comrades resigned, comrades that you never would have thought would abandon ship, people like Porina Mpariwa, just to name a few. James Makore in Chitungwiza, just to name a few. These are founding fathers of the movement. James Makore was one of the key organizers of the movement way back in 1998 when we did the National Working People's Convention, in the National Constitutional Assembly, the NCA. James Makore was a key member. You can't write the history of the MDC without writing about James Makore, Morgan Changirai, Gibson Sbanda, Remias Makwaza, Sekai Holland, just to name a few individuals. So when you lose everything, you reflect. And we reflected, we observed what people were saying into communities. Remember, by the end of the last quarter of last year, our president Nelson Chamisa went countrywide, listening to what the people were saying, and the people were basically saying, "We want a new form of engagement. We want a new consensus." Many of you think you were saying you want a new name. You were not saying that. You were basically saying that the modes of engagement we have been using in the last 10 years have become exhausted. So we need a new engine. And so we listened and we understood the core of what ordinary citizens were saying. They were not demanding rebranding, because rebranding, like the coup of 2017, is just a haircut. It's putting mascara and lipstick. And the ladies on this platform know that lipstick is lipstick. I'm Tendai Biti. You can't put lipstick on me and think that I can win the next Miss Zimbabwe contest. It will never happen. It can't happen. So we recognize that a structural change, was required. But what was this structural change? The change was a radical departure from a contested past of internal cannibalization, marinated with external exhausting and exhausted politics of ZANU-PF, politics of entitlement, politics of looting, politics of name calling. We realized that our citizens needed a radical departure from this contested past. In short, and I want comrades to citizens to understand this point very clearly. The citizens wanted a new consensus, shifting the political party back to the citizen. So in the 20 years of its existence, from 1999 to 2020, it was clear that in its discourse, in the process of the transformation of the movement into a people's organization, into a mass organization, to a political party, it had shifted the citizen from the center to the periphery. Therefore, what was required was a radical shift where we shifted the citizen from the periphery back to the center, a new consensus, a new mode of engagement. The launch of the Citizens Coalition on Change by President Chamisa yesterday is not a rebranding. It is a new political organization. It is a new political consensus. It is a new ethos where we are shifting now the citizen from the periphery to the center. You watched what we did on Sunday. On Sunday, we were confirming candidates to the by-election that will be held on the 26th of March 2022. So in the past, we would simply have said the candidates that were victims, the MPs that were victims, are automatic candidates. We refused to do that. We said, let's go back in the communities and talk to the citizens and ask the citizens whether the men and women whom Charlie gave the mandate on the 30th of July 2018 were still good enough, were still resonating with the people. And we did this countrywide. I was sent to do Mutari, Manicaland. I was in Chikanga, Danga, Mvura. I was in Ward 4 and Ward 5. I was in Mutasa, where we engaged with the citizens. And citizens says, yes, we have reservations about one or two. But for now, Mr. Vice President, go and tell the party, go and tell the president that the focus now is we want to set the record straight vis-a-vis Mr. Douglas Monzoro and vis-a-vis Mr. Emerson Mnangagwa. We will change course in 2023 when we look at other candidates. But for now, we've got something to settle, which is not internal, which is external. So we took back power, not to our structures, away from our structures, to the citizen, to the center. So in a nutshell, the citizen a coalition for change represents a radical departure from a contested past, internally and externally, associated with ZANU-PF intransigence, ZANU-PF's politics of deceit, which in turn it created contradictions inside, which resulted in a typical animal farm situation where you don't know pig from man and man from pig. So by forming this new movement, by forming this coalition, we are essentially saying that we are shifting back power to the citizen, as we did at the National Working People's Convention held at the Women's Bureau Center on the 26th of February 1998. So what is the focus then of the CCC? The focus is transformation. If you look at our new slogans, Shanduko Zimbabwe, Famba Zimbabwe Famba, Transformation Zimbabwe, Move Zimbabwe Move, Shanduko Zimbabwe, Vaka Zimbabwe Vaka, meaning transformation in Zimbabwe, build Zimbabwe, build Zimbabwe. So that is the focus. That is the focus, is to recreate a new Zimbabwe, founded on a new core set of values, the values of solidarity, the values of inclusivity, the values of equalness, the values of prosperity, the values of equal opportunity, values that are codified in Section 8 of our Constitution. That is the bigger picture. That is the bigger picture. That is the bigger picture. But how do you achieve this? You achieve this by placing your focus on the citizen. The Wanjiku, as Daniel Arap Moi would call them, the Walahoi, the Wananji, Vanu. So that is what we are doing. That is what we are doing, and we are going to see this in motion. You're going to see the thing in motion. Of course, the political structure is important. Of course, the political structure, because you need it for organizational purpose. But the real decision making is the people. You have heard President Chamisa acknowledge that the biggest mistake was to allow narrow party interest to determine, for instance, the issue of candidates. Now, communities must their candidates. Traditional leaders must have a say. The church must have a say. The workers must have a say, and so forth. So it's a new radical departure. It's not, I think let's call it a makeover. This is not a makeover. This is a new structural beginning an important beginning. And no wonder why the regime is in panic, because the regime fully understands what is happening now, that there's a new consensus, there's new alchemy, and there's a new focus on the citizen, the citizen, the citizen, the citizen. So what are the key issues apart from that constitute this utopia, the utopia of a new great Zimbabwe? I think the economy is going to be so key. The economy is going to be so key. You cannot have an economy where 95% of the people are unemployed or are in the informal economy. We need to address that. The contradictions and arbitrage brought by the use of the RTGS and the failed experiment in de-dollarization, that is going to be key. That is going to be in the 2023 election, as it will be a key fight in this by-election. People issues include the issues of pensions. Pensioners have suffered a double whammy. The loss of US $5.68 billion in 2008, and the loss of pensions now arising out of SI 33 of 2019, when the so-called Minister of Finance woke up one morning and said our hard-earned US dollars was now local currency, and billions of dollars were lost in values, were lost in pensions. It's critical, it's criminal that a worker who was earning US $500 is now earning in real terms US $10. This runaway exchange rate, the parallel market rate is now 1:250. They're now trying to control it by switching off broad money supply on RTGS. So you now have the ironic situation that if you go to 4th Street, the black market, you can get the US dollar, but you can't get the RTGS to buy it because the Reserve Bank has simply shut the taps. But you can't physically deal with the exchange rate. The exchange rate will expose you. The exchange rate will show you what you truly are: a government of brigands, a government of roving bandits, Zigananda, as I call them. So the economy is going to be key in center stage. We want a transformative economy, an economy that is inclusive, an economy that creates jobs, an economy that you don't feel. You mustn't feel the economy. A citizen should just be able to do joy, to jabula, doing whatever he or she wants without feeling the economy. This economy, you feel it. It suffocates you. It kills you. It emasculates you. It captures you. It pauperizes you. Enough of that. And we have done it. Citizens know that we've done it in the brief period of the inclusive government. That's number one. Focus on the economy. Two, focus on the people's agenda. What is the people's agenda? The right to education. President Hichilema, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when he assumed office, promised free education to Zambians, and he has delivered. We can do that. Education is a fundamental right. And so we must be able to provide education for our people, all the way to university. We've got the resources to finance that. This country has got 63 minerals. This country has got the capacity of harvesting 100 tons of gold, 100 tons of gold. This country had world-class deposits of platinum, world-class deposits of diamonds. So let no one tell you that this economy can't afford free education for its citizens. What is the people's agenda? The people's agenda is health. I've got a grandfather who is ill, seriously ill. We've had to do everything from syringes, gloves, this test, that test, this test, that test. He has had a double attack of COVID. His lungs are not working, so he's now surviving on oxygen. That oxygen tank, I bought an oxygen tank for a lot of money only on Friday. It can't last for 3 days. Today I went, they want $1,000, they want this. It's just crazy. So the public health system has collapsed in this country. We have to deal with it because it is a citizen agenda. Citizen agenda, grants to our people. We need to give grants. This country can afford to give grants to the citizen, unemployed citizen, of at least US $50, US $60. Don't tell me we don't have the money. We have the money. I know. I once ran this economy. I know we can afford to give grants to people living with disabilities. We can afford to give grants to our unemployed. We can afford to give grants to the orphaned. We can afford to give grants to the elderly people in Zimbabwe. People's agenda. People's agenda. The state of our infrastructure. The issue of Dura. Dura stands for Development and Urbanization of Rural Areas. It pains me, ladies and gentlemen, that 43 years after independence, 70% of Zimbabweans have no access to electricity. It pains me, citizens, that 43 years after independence, 56% of the Zimbabwean population use the bush as a toilet. And in some provinces, which I shall not mention by name because I don't want to upset anyone, in some provinces, 79% of the people use the toilet as a bush. 43 years after independence. So the social agenda, the transformation agenda must include dealing with poverty and the development and urbanization of rural areas. Why can't every house in our rural area be electrified? Why can't we have paved roads? Why can't we have markets that work? So this is the citizen agenda. These are the things that people will talk about if you go to a bar in Matepatepa, if you go to a deep tank in Otito. That's what people are discussing. They're talking about their crops. They're talking about their children. They're talking about the state of roads right now because of the rains. Bridges are not, are not passable. This is the citizen agenda. This is the people's agenda, an agenda of transformation. And of course, people are talking about corruption. You cannot have the whole country owned by Kudata Gwirei and his friend, the Scaffman. They've taken over Zupco. Zupco has been privatized. They've taken over banks, ZB Bank. They've taken over NASA, First Mutual Life. They've taken over the gold sector. For Christ's sake, they've taken over the Reserve Bank. Fidelity Life and Gold has been privatized. 60% of it has been given to Kudata Gwirei. Zimbabwe might as well be changed to Kudasville because he has literally taken over everything. The foreign exchange, 60% of the foreign exchange that is being distributed by the Reserve Bank. It's a lot of money. It's almost 40 million US dollars a week. 60% of it is going to Kuda and his cronies and the elites, the who is who of ZANU-PF. So the citizen agenda includes the obligation to deal with the leakages that are afflicting our country. For me, the biggest agenda on transformation is to modernize our country. What does this entail? It entails technology, the adoption and use of block technology, the adoption and use of 6G, technology. I'm a lawyer. I'm sitting in my office right now. My office is full of piles and piles of files. Why shouldn't I be doing e-filing, e-presentations, and arguing cases from the comfort of my library here? It can't happen. This country, ladies and gentlemen, stopped working way back in the 60s. So we are caught up in a rut in the 60s. Every other country has moved on. If you go to South Africa, it's like another continent. If you go to Nairobi, it's like another continent. If you go to Francistown or Gaborone, it's like another continent. Even if you go to Wollstone, Maputo, it's like another continent. Zimbabwe was put on pause by ZANU-PF. It has froze, which is why I keep on saying that if you wake up someone who died in Zimbabwe in 1968, nothing has changed. Put him in Samora Machel. The only thing that will confuse him is that Samora Machel is now Samora Machel. It used to be Jameson Avenue. And of course, the other thing that will confuse him is that little Mbuyani and the statue at the corner of Samora Machel. Nothing has changed. So we have been frozen. And ZANU-PF has deliberately underdeveloped us. Some of you have read Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Us. Someone should write a PhD thesis entitled How ZANU-PF Underdeveloped Zimbabwe. Not sanctions, not the opposition, not the Western world. How ZANU-PF deliberately underdeveloped Zimbabwe. So in a nutshell, the citizen agenda is about transformation. In a nutshell, the citizen agenda is about opportunities. In a nutshell, the citizen agenda is about prosperity. In a nutshell, the citizen agenda is about inclusivity. In a nutshell, the citizen agenda is about empowerment, taking power from the periphery to the center. That means our electoral delivery system must work, because elections represent the checkpoint, the marking point, where the citizen has got the right of power. So it's so important in the matters of giving citizens to power that the electoral decision making must work. The other thing that must work are institutions. Strong institutions protect the citizen. Strong institutions protect democracy. Third, the constitution. We cannot have a constitution that is lacerated by amendments and amendments. Emerson Mnangagwa has only been in power for 4 years, but he has lacerated this constitution in over 40 amendments that is debased the basic structure of our country. That is not good enough. Mr. Mugabe did that in 20 amendments over 13 years. The Zimbabwean constitution has been amended much more times than the American constitution. Yet the American constitution has been existing for 3 centuries. It's a pity, and that can go on. So to conclude, my brother Wopel and the listeners, the Citizens Coalition on Change is a radical departure from a contested past dominated by intolerance, exclusivity, division, false starts, and a false social contract. The Citizens Coalition for Change seeks to create a new matrix of engagement, one based on the city. It seeks to shift attention. It seeks to grab the citizen from the periphery to the center. Chinhu chenyu, chinhu chevanhu, wanjiku, walala hoi, wananji. That is the agenda. But what is the end goal? The end goal is a new great Zimbabwe. And what is the new great Zimbabwe? It is an inclusive, just, modern society with the super highways, with spaghetti roads, bullet trains, functional courts, functional judiciary, electronic newspapers, and so forth. Put simply, a happy Zimbabwe, a free Zimbabwe, a modern Zimbabwe, a smiling Zimbabwe, a yellow Zimbabwe. I thank you. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Tendai Biti. That's the Vice President of the Citizens Coalition for Change, who was giving us insights and history and what they want to do going forward. Now, I'm going to open up the floor today. I'm not going to ask questions because this is a conversation between Tendai Biti and the citizens. So I'm going to open the floor. You can request the microphone. I'll bring about 5 people at a time. And please make your questions tight. We don't want paragraphs of questions. We want it to be tight so that a lot of people can have the conversation with Tendai Biti. Titus, please go ahead, unmute and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Brother Wapwell. Thank you, Vice President Tendai Biti, for coming. And it was really interesting to how you narrated all the history, where the party came from and everything. So my question is just based on how you narrated it. Obviously, you did mention that we cannot talk about, the founding members of MDC without mentioning Morgan Tsvangirai and people like that. I just want you to put a bed to this question that has been asked from the other side. I think I know the answer to it, but I just want to hear it from you. How would you respond to the people who have said, by you leaving the name of MDC, you have actually kind of disrespected Morgan Tsvangirai because you have actually let that name go? I think personally, I do know the answer to that, but I just want to hear it from you, how you would answer that. Thank you.
Tendai.
Okay, thank you, Koma Hope. On the contrary, we have protected Morgan Tsvangirai's legacy. It was Morgan Tsvangirai, Gibson Sibanda, Sekai Holland, Machaba Hove, Isaac Matongo, and others who were at the forefront of the formation of the MDC. And as I said, it's not an accident that the MDC was called the Movement for Democratic Change. So essentially, they recognized that it was never going to be a political party arrested by narrow political interests. It was going to be a mass movement. But where we are living, what we have left behind was no longer a mass movement. The citizen was no longer on the center. So in fact, we have protected Morgan Sliggers. We protected Gibson Sliggers by giving back the movement back to the people, by recalibrating the terms of engagement away from party structures to the people and focusing purely on a citizen agenda, purely on a poor agenda, purely on a people, purely on a Wanjiku agenda. That is what we have done. So I'm not a prophet, I'm not a marabout, I'm not a sangoma, but I want to believe that wherever Morgan Tsvangirai is sitting right now, I'm sure he's smiling, and I'm sure he's saying to Nelson Chamisa, well done. I'm sure he's saying to the rest of the leadership, well done, because it was long overdue to have this radical departure for the simple and good reason that the name MDC and what it stood for had reached its limitations. It reached its limitations. And in history, organizations move in a linear style. Organizations die a natural death. Organizations recreate themselves. Sometimes they give themselves a new name. Sometimes they don't. But any organization that doesn't recreate itself, it dies. I want to give you two examples. There were once two great liberation movements, one in Kenya, one in Zambia. One was called KANU, the Kenyan African National Union, founded by greats like Odinga, like Moi, like Uhuru Kenyatta. When the fight for the one-party state came in Kenya, KANU and Arab Moi failed to handle the situation. And the result was that history obliterated KANU. KANU disappeared forever. The same applies to Zambia. There was the founding party of Zambianism was the party of Kenneth Kaunda. They founded UNIP, the United Party of Independence. But again, in 1991, when the quest for multi-party democracy came in Zambia, and UNIP lost, UNIP disappeared. There is no political party in Zambia called UNIP because UNIP failed to recreate itself. But go to Tanzania with Chama Chama Pinduzi. The people in Chama Chama Pinduzi realized that they had to recreate themselves. And the person who realized that we had to recreate was Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. He passed on the baton stick. He passed on the baton stick to Hassan Mwinyi. Hassan Mwinyi, William Benjamin Mkapa. Benjamin Mkapa to Jijaya Kikwete. And then, of course, we had the aberration called John Pombe Magufuli. So if an organization does not reinvent itself, does not recreate itself, it dies a natural death. So the old movement for democratic change died a natural death, torn and blown away by internal conflict, torn and blown away by the machinations of ZANU-PF, and torn and blown away by its metamorphosization from a people-citizen movement into an eclectic organization. And so hence the radical departure.
We seem to have lost Tendai Biti today. Can you hear me, Tendai?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah, please go ahead. We seem to have lost you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I finished and said that
I think someone is trying to call you. So each time
phone me, yeah, that's true.
We're being blocked, yeah. So thank you very much for that response. The next person is the insider. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, the insider is no longer there. Medic, go ahead.
Thank you,
Medic,
Thank you,
when I call out your name, please unmute your microphone and then speak. Please go ahead, Medic.
Thank you, Hopewell, and thank you, Sly Biti. And I'll ask my question in Sona. Taona kwese kwatakatarisira kuti toda kusvika nezvese zvatinokwanisa kuti tiite ende zvinoitika. Asi mubvunzo wangu ndewekuti, like right now it's an open secret, mari iri kudyiwa, mari iri kubiwa. Tichaita sei kuti tirikavhe mari yedu kuti tikwanise kuti nyika ibudirire nemari iyoyo, because imari yakawandisa. Pane maplans here, Mr. Biti, sevari leadership kuti are we going to recover our money or tongoti led by gods, be by gods? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Medic. Tendai, please go ahead. Let us use English because we have got a lot of African friends who are on this space. So where we can, please let us use English. Please go ahead, Tendai.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mukoma Hopo. I think it's an important question. So there are two things that the new Zimbabwe has to deal with. There are two things that we have to deal with. The first one is transitional justice. There's so much pain that has been caused to our people. Our people have got scars, our people have got wounds. It pains me as a citizen to watch the way our people are being treated in South Africa, to watch our people being handed down like dogs from restaurants, to watch our women, our sisters being embarrassed in South Africa in roadblocks, in deportation centers, and so forth. And to watch the political landscape in South Africa become so xenophobic. It pains me that 5,000 Zimbabweans are trying to cross crocodile-infested Limpopo every day to go to an extremely unwelcome country. There is pain there. There is pain of Gukurahundi, the pain of Balagwe, the pain of Cholocho, the massacres in Ngai. One man shot 300 people one day. I shan't mention his name. I call him the butcher. So that can't be washed away. Gukurahundi can't be washed away. What about the pain of 2008? The pain of Tondera Indira? The pain of Chawona and Chiweshe, where one family lost 15 members in one day in June of 2008? What about the pain of people like Wopo Chingono, people like Joanna Mamombe, people like Cecilia Chimpiri, people like Makombelero Aruzivishe, the pain of Patson Zamara and the Zamara family? So this country can't be liberated. This country can't move to destination Great Zimbabwe unless and until we deal with the issue of transitional justice. I personally think it's not about it's about compensation, it's about telling the truth, it's about apologies. But we need to go that bridge. The second bridge which we need to do is the bridge of justice, economic justice. People are stealing. People are stealing. And I know a lot from my work as chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. $2.7 billion was stolen in 2017. On one day alone, Mkoma Hope, $1.5 billion US was stolen on the 27th of December 2017. For Christ's sake, who steals on Christmas Day? You know, $3.5 billion US was stolen in 2018. $6.5 billion US was stolen in 2019. Let's wait for the audit statements of 2020, because now we're in 2022. More will be stolen. So these people are roving bandits, as I have. So any decent government, the people's government, the citizens' government, surely must revisit all the contracts that would have been done that prejudice, the people of Zimbabwe. I was just reading the other day that the Amish Radish family has just bought Tongat Hullet. I'm on the verge of filing a court application, sorry, a summons in the High Court of Zimbabwe for the Hlengwe Shangani people, saying to the sugar companies in the mid-veld, in the low veld, the Hippo valleys, the Tonga Hullet, that give us our land. You dispossessed our land in 1954 without, without compensation. Look at Billy Rottenberg. He has taken all the land of the people of Chimanimani, the Dao people in Checheche, and so forth. Look at the havoc that the Chinese are now are causing in Matno, the India, in Mutoko, and so forth. Look at the havoc that Kudata Gwire has taken. The takeover of ZB Bank, the takeover of that bank, the takeover of First Mutual Life, the takeover of 11 gold mines, the takeover of Zupco, the takeover of Noxim, the takeover of Zinara. Look at land, land barons like Kenneth, Royd, and Sharp have taken over land in Zimbabwe. So surely, one of the things that needs to be done is to set up a legal framework, to set up a commission that will look into these transactions. I don't know what you're going to call it. This commission must look at every transaction. This commission must be answerable to Parliament. We must take our assets. And those that are looting in Mkoma Hope must know that money leaves a trail. That money leaves a fingerprint. The Financial Action Task Force set up by the Federal Reserve will tell you who has got what in Singapore. We now know that they all have bank accounts in Mauritius. And Mauritius is just 3 hours from Zimbabwe. So the people of Zimbabwe will follow that money in Shanghai, will follow that money in Hong Kong, will follow that money in Singapore, will follow that money in Dubai, will follow that money in Mauritius. Now we know what you're doing at Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. We'll follow that money in your girlfriend's accounts in the UK, in the Channel Islands, in the Virgin Islands. And trust me, the fact that I'm mentioning these things means I know a lot. So please do the right thing. Give back the people of Zimbabwe what they owe. Can you imagine how many schools the 54 million US dollars that Kuda has earned from Zupco can build? I mean, it's criminal. Can you imagine how many hospitals, the millions of dollars that took when they bought Zim Alloys can buy? Can you imagine the number of maternity wards that can be built by the millions of dollars that Kuda took when they bought Bindura Nickel mine, nickel mine in Bindura? So these things, there is no dictator who has been buried with his wealth. Mobutu Sese Seko was not buried with his wealth. Sani Abacha was not buried with his wealth. The long and short of what I'm saying is that it might take time, but the people will always repatriate ill-begotten gains, illicit financial flows. It happened in the DRC Congo. It has happened in Nigeria. It has happened in Kenya. It has happened in Ghana. It will happen in Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Nkoma Tendai. I would like to ask everyone who is on this space to go to my latest tweet and retweet it. It's a fundraiser for the Citizens Coalition for Change to assist them to fundraise money that they are going to use in the March 26 election. Elections cost money. They need that help. You can donate whatever you want. If you don't have money to donate, a retweet won't cost you any money. So it's over 4,500 people here. Please go to my latest tweet and retweet it. It's a fundraiser for the Citizens Coalition for Change. They need that financial assistance. By retweeting, you are giving it more prominence so that other people who are not necessarily following me can see. And I'd like to ask everyone who is on this space, if you're not following Tendai Biti, please follow him now. It's important. Communication is important. And I would like to advise everyone that when you see messages that are to do with the transformation that this country needs, please retweet them. The ZANU-PF government, ZANU-PF is a political party. They have newspapers which belong to the state that they use. They use the only TV station in the country. Yesterday, they didn't even talk about the Citizens Coalition for Change. Today, you saw in the Herald, you saw in the Chronicle, you saw in the other surrogate newspaper, they control the Daily News. They didn't even mention about that. So we have social media, and it's a very powerful tool. If we don't use it, we are undermining the cause that is going to deliver the change we want. So please do that. Nicoletta, please go ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Hopewell, and thank you for this conversation. I just have a question for Tendai Biti. I don't know if this issue was already addressed before I joined, and I apologize if it has already been addressed. What has been done by the new party to safeguard the new name, the Citizens Coalition Change? For change, because we see that what happened with MDC, the name was a free for all. So many, other people came and, they added on to it and started their own political parties. So as a party, have you done anything to safeguard the name for your party and also the integrity of the party? Because we find that we had these issues of elected MPs being expelled from parliament, and obviously that was able to be done because there were loopholes in the party previously. So has anything been done to plug those loopholes to ensure that those kind of things don't happen in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Tendai.
Well, thank you very much. A very important question. So I want. I can't disclose the legal things, the legal measures that have been taken to protect this name, but you know the laws around copyright. So those things have been done, but I can't say what we have done because not everyone who is listening here is a citizen. Secondly, I think the biggest protection, my sister, the biggest protection we have done is to create a decisive break with the past. There's absolutely no connection at all between the Citizens for Change and the MTC. We have created a decisive break. In the past,
sorry, Tenda, just 1 minute. Tatenda, please, can you mute your microphone? I keep muting you, but you keep unmuting. Don't unmute your microphones until I give you the floor to speak, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Tenda.
So the biggest protection we have given ourselves is to have a radical departure. As I said, the Citizens Coalition for Change is not a rebranding. It's not a makeover. It's not mascara. It is a completely different organization. There's no nexus at all. There's no connection at all with the old contested past. So we have said, look, take over, Mr. Monjora, take over the names, take over the colors, take over everything, take over even the slogans. So that way, this is a new baby. And the new baby cannot be visited with the baggage of its ancestors. And that's exactly what we have done. That's exactly what we have done. And if you look at the excitement amongst people, Twitter has reached the breaking point with yellow, yellow. And I didn't know that. If we could sponsor, Mr. Zimbabwe or Miss Zimbabwe, those in yellow would win hands down because of what I saw on Twitter today. Amazing. You're in the middle of history. So the biggest protection we have made is a total break from the past. A total break from the past, a new beginning, a new beginning. That is what is so key. This radical transformative step that we have taken, that has no link that has no nexus at all with our past, and so that is the biggest protection. As I said, there are other things that we've, but I can't discuss.
So, Mkoma Tendai, in regards to the properties that were taken away using state institutions, are you able to give us an insight in regards to what you're going to do?
Well, I can't go into a lot of details. Suffice to say that the old MDC actually never owned any property in its name, not even Harvest House. So Harvest House is owned by a company with shareholders. So those shareholders can do anything. I mean, as owners, they can sell the building. I'm not their lawyer. I don't sit on their board. But just like your house, Hopewell, you can do anything that you want with it. The other properties were bought under a name called, Lafonic Private Limited. So the issue of properties has nothing to do with the MDC, because the MDC itself never owned properties. But as I said, we are a new organization. We're going to have our own head office. We're going to have our own vehicles. We're going to have our own computers. And I thank you for leading this quest for fundraising. The citizens are going to fund their project. They own their project. Only 2 weeks ago, they bought our president a vehicle. I know from the bottom of my heart that they will buy us a head office. They will buy us t-shirts. They will buy us posters. They will buy us computers. And of course, our friends. You can't be a good citizen if you don't have good friends, because being a good citizen means you're a good comrade. You cajole with others, and we have friends all over across the world. I've seen some of them on this platform where we don't even have bank accounts. Hope. So, but we have to start from somewhere. But we do have a bank account full of people. We do have a bank account full of citizens, and I saw those citizens in yellow today. I went to Bonmat CCPT. The women there were putting on yellow, and I said, "Why?" He says, "No." I went to Closer, the laboratory, to buy oxygen for my Sekuru. The workers there were saying, "Look, we are putting on these blue overalls. We want yellow overalls." So there's a mood in this country. There's a mood in this country. And I hope that those that are in the mood can also monetize the mood by supporting their movement, by supporting their brand new baby. So it's not enough to put on a yellow color. Also monetize that spirit that led you to put on that beautiful yellow dress, my sister. Support the coalition.
Thank you very much. On that point of fundraising, as I've requested, please go to my latest tweet and retweet it. It's important. If you don't have money to donate, you can just retweet. We are over 4,000 here. If half of us are kind enough, we should be having more than 2,000 retweets. That will give it prominence so that people can see it. Please do whatever you can by donating, but if you can't donate, just retweet. It costs you nothing to retweet. Danny Boy, please go ahead.
The new Danny Boy. But anyway, thank you, Opa, for the opportunity, and thank you, Tendai, for this opportunity. I got a few questions. I'm gonna make them short. I had 1,000 of them, but I'm gonna list them down, list a few important ones. First of all, congratulations on the new outfit, on being new. But then the circumstances are still the same. So MPF is still the same, are still the same guys, they're still the same crocodiles, they're still the same villains. So I just want to know how you're going to approach the following things I'm going to mention here. First of all, we've got electoral reform. This has been an issue since 2000, and not much has been done in that regard. And you continue to partake in these elections under the same circumstances. What are you going to do as a new outfit? That's one. Two, the issue regarding delivering your election, your manifesto promises in terms of cities, councils, and even in parliament. a lot of excuses have come from there. First of all, we've heard ZANU-PF does this and ZANU-PF controls that, so the MPs and the mayors and the councillors can't achieve that because of this. But then we want to know, what are you going to do to work around that? Because you promise you have to deliver regardless of the challenges. And another question is to do with corruption.
Keep it tight. We've got a lot of people.
Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm going to make this one very short. Regarding corruption, one of your things you mean in your manifesto is regarding office holders, the public office holders, declaring their wealth. We have a few mayors, councillors, and so forth from the MDC who has never declared their wealth to the public when they hold these offices. So how are you going to deliver on the fight against corruption if you can't follow one simple step such as that? So can you just answer me on that, and then I can just stop there. I had many more, but I'm gonna keep it tight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go on.
Thank you, Mkoma Hope. Yeah, so the first question has to do with Danny Boy's contention that nothing has changed, in the sense that you still face the same challenges, like electoral reform. So in a few days' time, our president is going to speak on our 2022 agenda for action. And one of the things that he will speak on is the agenda around electoral reforms and the 8 key things that we feel need to be addressed. We are part of a process already that is working on a new bill to address those things. So we'll be pushing on those things. Some of the things are so obvious. I mean, the issue of media reform is key. Hope just mentioned that ZANU owns 12 newspapers. None of them in the decency of reporting on the formation of our new movement. But that doesn't surprise us. It pains us that 43 years after independence, we still have one analog using broadcasting house, the Zimbabwe Broadcasting house, which is critical and also foolish, because modern media platforms have meant the democratization of media. We are on this platform, a broadcasting platform, publishing to thousands of people. So we don't need a license. So the regime must understand that, but it doesn't. Of course, it's stuck in a past. It's stuck in a rut. So we will push this agenda. Part of the thing is the demilitarization of our elections. That is so key. But I want to say, if you listen to one of our new slogans, and this is not a slogan, we say 2023, 6 million votes. 6 million votes are key. They are key in that to beat a dictatorship, ultimately, it's not about electoral reforms. Ultimately, it's quantitative. It's about people who actually physically come to vote. And when you fight a dictatorship, the margin of victory can't be in single digits. The margin of victory can't be in single digits. So how do we translate into double digits? That's the $1 million question. That's why we are focusing on citizens. President Hichilema beat PF and Edgar Lungu because he beat Lungu by over 1 million votes. Trust me, if President Hichilema had won by 70,000 votes or 300 votes, Edgar Lungu would have not gone. So we require to deliver a knockout punch to autocracy. We require to deliver out punch to authoritarian hegemon. That means that our margin of victory must be unquestionable, must be undoubted. So election reforms, yes, but we have to deliver the knockout punch, meaning that we need millions to vote for change, to vote for transformation, to vote for Advocate Nelson Chamisa and his team. You ask, why do we participate in these by-elections, even though the electoral playing field is uneven and unequal? Firstly, we participate to guard our zones of autonomy. You know, when people vote for you, they are saying this is ours. They are liberating. So we participate in these elections to protect our zones of autonomy. We participate in these elections to expose the system. Because when the system subverts democracy, it gets exposed. It's the same reason why do we go to courts that we keep on losing. We go to courts so that we lose harder, not to win. We go to court to lose harder. Because when we lose harder, we expose that the law is not autonomous, that courts are not autonomous, that courts are captured. It's the same reason why we participate in elections. We do so for posterity. We do so to expose the regime. But finally, we participate in elections because ultimately there has to be a difference between us and our mother, the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, between us and the Zimbabwe Council of Churches. So while the Zimbabwe Council of Churches fishes men and women for heaven, we fish men and women for a utopian heaven that we seek to establish on earth. And the two agendas are not mutually exclusive. There's no way in the Bible that says suffer on earth in order to prosper in heaven. Suffer, prosper on earth, prosper in heaven. So we are two sides of the same coin. We participate in elections because that is ultimately is our mission. And boycott politics has got limitations. Boycott politics has got limitations. And the world is not going to stop because you've boycotted. You saw what happened in 2015 when we boycotted the elections. ZANU created its surrogates. Professor Maduku was on the ballot paper. That woman called the one who puts paper, she was on the ballot paper, pretty as she is. So the world doesn't stop. The world doesn't stop. The world doesn't stop because you have moved. In Shona, they say, "Ateramire munda kuma kudo." And I know exactly what I mean because I spent a lot of my time in rural areas. The baboon will eat, the baboon will scorn you, and the baboon doesn't give a heck. So we participate in elections to energize the citizen, to keep the citizen engaged. And I want to say this, friends and citizens, that when you fight dictatorship, you stretch it. When you fight dictatorship, you do four things. You protect your zones of autonomy, you build a credible alternative, but you stretch the regime. You increase the cost of dictatorship. So we are fielding 28 candidates. The regime will be stretched. It's a mini election. If we sit at home, you make the dictator go easy. Lastly, you isolate the dictatorship. And that's what we do. That's why we lobby in churches, the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and so forth. Those are the four things that you use to fight a dictatorship. It's about the local authorities to deliver on our election promises. They cheated us in the 2018 election. And an opposition party can't do anything. It can't do anything. It doesn't control the levers of the state. Local authorities are subordinate to central government. Section 314 of the Urban Councils Act says any local authority is subject to the policy direction of a minister. They run these councils. Government runs these councils as if they're school choirs. Mayors are fired as if they're employees. Yet we've got a constitutional position in Chapter 14 of our Constitution that makes it clear that local authorities are independent, that we've got devolution, and that they're only subject to the electorate that chose them. Look at the way that they've been treating, or more appropriately treating, Jacob Mafume. Jacob Mafume has been, Jacob Mafume, by the way, is the mayor of Harare. He's been 4 or 5 times. The original mayor, Herbert Gomba, was fired. How do you fire, a mayor? I'm not making an excuse, because we are also unhappy with some of the things that we've seen in our local authorities. Our president spoke out against corruption, and our councillors, they go in there with little training. They find infrastructure of corruption already there. I'll tell you a story that we dealt with in 2008. In 2008, we won 13 councillors out of 13 in Bindura. But our own councillors found resolutions that said a councillor is entitled to 5 stands: a commercial stand, a low density stand, a medium density stand, an industrial stand. I don't even know the difference myself. 5 stands. So we called our mayor was a lady mayor, female mayor. We called her at Harvest House. I was the secretary general. I said, but mayor, you know, this is a dissolution. They tried to undo that resolution. Chombo called them and said, you can't undo that resolution, because they wanted to trap them with the stealing and corruption. So it comes back to what Lenin says. You can't lay your hands on the state. You have to seize and smash. What do I mean by that? You can't change the superstructure without changing the base. So the base of the Zimbabwean society, the base of the Zimbabwean state is fundamentally corrupt. Is fundamentally corrupt. And so we need to change the base. That's why it's so important that next year the citizens take over the state through the vehicle, the baby that they've created, so that we can have real transformation in Zimbabwe. Change is not enough, it's transformation. And as I said at the beginning, that's why our slogan is Shanduko mu Zimbabwe, Famba Zimbabwe Famba, Shanduko mu Zimbabwe, Vaka Zimbabwe, Vaka. And we can't build it unless we have a new culture. We can't build it unless we have a new ethos. We can't build it unless we have new institutions. And institutions are not buildings, it's the people inside. So we need to deal with the people. We need to deal with the culture of those organizations. We need to deal with the strategies of those organizations. So culture, strategy, organization. So if you ask me, and I'll answer this unanswered question. People are always ask me when I was the economy, that how can you turn it around? And I say, look, turning around this economy doesn't require more than 6 months. We can turn around this economy. We can stabilize this economy. And I know what I'm talking about. However, the biggest thing, the biggest challenge is how to turn around the structure of the Zimbabwe. We have been decimated, corrupted, and polluted by 43 years of Zanunization. How do we turn around the Zanunization of our people? The belief now, the culture now that you can be rich without working, without going to school. The creation of false idols, false heroes. The Wikno Chivayos of this world. The Philip Chiangwas of this world. The Passion Javas of this. I see him being followed by 2,000 kids. So how do we de-Zanunize the Zimbabwean state? That question is harder to achieve than turning around the economy, changing the culture, changing the ethos, finding a new social contract, finding new terms of engagement. And so in forming this movement, we're trying to find new terms of engagement. Last question, asset declaration. Ironically, we actually have a court application asking the government, you know, Section 198 of the Constitution says all public servants, all public officials must declare their assets. 8 years after the passage of this new constitution, the government has not come up with a law that forces everyone to declare their assets, including councillors. At our party, we declare our assets, and I'm sure our Secretary General can show you how poor we are. But it's not good enough. Part of changing the base, part of changing the ethos is asset declaration. Some people might see it as light. I don't see it as light. It works. Because MPs, ministers, councillors, permanent secretaries, they live in communities. So when you see a permanent secretary, George Guamatanga, buying a small house, the latest Mercedes-Benz, there's these ones with this enlarged Mercedes-Benz sign. We must ask him, where are you getting the money? Because the last time we checked, a permanent secretary earns the equivalent of US $400 dollars. Citizens will say, Look, he must account. So if you go into parliament with 2 pigs and you come out of parliament with 20 pigs, we must ask where you got those pigs. So asset declaration is a national issue. It's not a coalition issue. It's a national issue. It's a national issue. It's a citizen issue. And we must demand this. This business that the whole country is taken over by Kudata Birey, by Ken Regent Sharp, by Zed Kurunadis, by Hamish Rades, Billy Rottenberg, by Nick van Voostostrat, is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. We have to take back our country. We have to take the citizen to the center and make these people accountable. All of them. All of them.
Thank you very much, Nkomat and I. Since I requested for the retweets, 12 people have so far donated almost £200. Thank you so much for the 12 people who have donated. I'm making the request again. We are over 4,000. We are on 1,200 retweets. Let's retweet. The tweet has been pinned now on this space. I make that request again, that if you really want change, if you are genuine about change, do the little that you can. If you can't donate, the little that you could do is to retweet the tweet, which is the fundraiser for the Citizens Coalition for Change. They need that money in order to buy posters, in order to buy T-shirts. So if you can't donate, it's still okay, but just retweet. It doesn't cost money to retweet. And that is the basis on what or how other people perceive us. You've heard South Africans saying Zimbabweans are lazy, Zimbabweans don't want to commit to freeing themselves up. Those are the sort of things that people look at. They look at such a simple thing. And I saw South Africans saying Zimbabweans can't even retweet something that helps their cause. We are 4,000. We are on 1,200 retweets. At least let's get to 3,000 retweets. It will help. Some of the people that have donated part of the £200 are not necessarily on this space, but because of the retweets that you have done, they have seen it, donated. So I'm asking again, please retweet so that more people can see it and the Coalition for Citizens can be assisted. Tatenda, please go ahead. Tatenda,
Yeah,
unmute.
thanks, Ukoma. Yes, I did. Can you hear me now?
I can
Hello?
hear you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. My first question, I think there's a lady who asked the same question. It was all about okay, let me just leave that on. Let me go on to the second question, because I think the lady did ask the same question. My second question is, Nkoma, we've been okay, Nkoma tend a bit. There's a trend that we've been seeing, like before, like during the Mugabe era. There are some politicians in ZANU-PF who have been accused of corruption, corrupt activities, and the corruption has been so glaring for everyone to see. And then when they fell out of favor with the regime, we see most of the, you guys, the lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, you are the lawyers, representing them in the courts of law. We're going to see the same things happening again in the new organization now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Komatenda, you can go ahead.
Yes, well, it's an important question. Yeah, so there are a number of things that happen when a lawyer represents a client, and one of them is that people may actually have long-standing relationship. People may actually have known each other, for years and years and years, and some people may actually have gone to school. I'm not going to give examples, but I know one of our lawyers, a friend of mine, who represents someone in ZANU-PF, but they've actually known each other for years from high school. There are situations as well. And I've come across this. I've come across a situation where, and it has happened in a positive way and in a negative way. So I'm going to mention the name of the client that I represented in a positive way. Many years ago, as a young lawyer, in fact, there were two cases. Many years ago, as a young lawyer, I went to work. I was working for Anand Blackenberg. So I went to work. When I came back from work, I used to stay in Meborane. At my house, it was full of people. At my house in Meborane, number 14, 17th Avenue. So I see people crying. And so, Mnyaradzi Gwisai was there, Enoch Chikwech, Mnyaradzi Gwisai. It was Vena Sitole, the wife of the late and great Ndabaning Sitole. What's happening? Baba Vasungwa, Van Ndabaning Sitole, he was arrested for treason. So we're looking for a lawyer. Then I said, but Harare has got so many senior lawyers to me. Why haven't you gone to the Popo one? Why haven't you gone to this one? I shan't mention some of the lawyers. But the long and short of it, none of the lawyers were prepared to help Ndabaning Sitole. None. And it's a shock, but that's what happened. So I ended up representing Ndabaning Sitole, one of the proudest moments in my life. Around about the same time, Love Momaduku, before he went rogue, comes to my office. It was a Monday morning, very cold. Tendai, I want you to help. He brought a short woman that I didn't know. This is Mrs. Margaret Ongo. She has got an election challenge. There was an election in Sunningdale, and she got cheated. I said, but I love more. But they're senior lawyers to me. And we mentioned names. I shan't mention them again. And Love Mo's thing was, look, they are not willing to take ZANU-PF head on. I had another case now, this time from the other side, where no lawyer could touch that person. So it then became a human rights issue. It was no longer about the quality of the case. It was about anyone is presumed innocent until proven, guilty. So there are many different situations. I hope that we haven't discussed. This is not something we have discussed at a organization level, but certainly the new level. I hope we can discuss that. Certainly, citizens are concerned. It's an if sometimes you are actually not allowed to if you know murder cases. Murder cases are just allocated to lawyers on a pro deal basis. So you are not allowed to say, I don't believe, I think this person murdered people, I can't represent him. They will strike you off. So we walk a thin line between ethics and the morality of the case. And I hope our movement, through your own contributions, can assist what we can do. But speaking as a lawyer who is constantly facing this moral dilemma, fortunately, there are now so many lawyers in Zimbabwe. So what I faced as a young lawyer, that lawyers will actually say we don't want to act for him. I don't think that situation can arise now, because I think we now have over 4,000, 6,000 registered lawyers. Unlike my time where there were not more than 800 registered lawyers in the whole of Zimbabwe.
Was it ever a case of I'm talking about the post 2000 era, a case of not having enough lawyers, or the people are looking for quality lawyers? I saw it with my lawyer Beatrice Mtetwa. She got insulted and at some point beaten up by ZANU-PF and the police, and the same person who had ordered those attacks on her, physical attacks of being beaten up, Chuhuri, when he got into trouble, he went to Beatrice Mtetwa.
It was a question of lawyers not one. It was not even a question of quality lawyers. Remember in the 90s, unlike now, the bulk of legal work was done by what are called white law firms. So you're talking of Scandal Wilderness, you're talking of Cogna Walsh and Case, you're talking of Anand Blackenberg, where I spent 18 years at. You're talking of Gil Goodwin and Gerrans. You're talking of Winterton Holmes and Hill. You're talking of Atherstone and Cook. You're talking of Kandwe Timame. So then in Bulawayo, you're talking of a few firms as well. Coughlin and Welsh, Lazarus and Sarif, David Coulter's law firm. I can't remember its law firm. So you are really talking of few firms, very few firms, and all those firms would get business from government, either conveyancing. Kwan and Bleckenberg, we used to be the lawyers for the seat of Harare. So they would also act for parastatals. Even up to now, parastatals are represented by these huge white law firms, with the possible exception of Dube Manika and Wacha, which is the one black law firm that has managed to attract work of that nature from parastatals. So you had a situation where the status quo did not want to disturb the status quo. So they just said, "Oh, no, we can't touch the Manning Stone. We can't touch Margaret Dongo." But because I came from the student movement, they just said, "No, Tendai will do it." And so they came to me, and I did that. Even corporates. I'll tell you another story. Siemens is SIMENS, the German technological giant. When Strive Masiwa won the case to set aside Section 26 of the then Post and Telecommunications Act, which gave the old PTC monopoly to establish a mobile phone network, Siemens had brought in equipment into Zimbabwe, which ironically was later used by Econet. It was actually meant for Net One. So the contract was given to some dubious company. So Siemens actually took the government to court on the basis that you had awarded this contract rapidly. None of the big law firms was prepared to, and in fact, Siemens was actually represented by Gilgood London and Gerrans. But Gilgood and Gerrans was not prepared at the time to take the government on. So I ended up acting for Siemens as a young, green-eyed lawyer. We won the case. It was a complicated case because I had to sit with engineers. I didn't know about bandwidth. I didn't know about this and so forth. So at the time, to cut the long story short, it was just a question of an undemocratized legal profession dominated by these old, firms established during the colonial era, who were not prepared to rub the government the wrong way, who in any event were in lucrative incestuous arrangements with the government of the day, which is not the case anymore, because Vananyamziwa Tawanda, so we don't care, we will hit them.
Thank you very much. Lorraine, please go ahead. Lorraine, unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. Happy celebrations for this new baby, everybody. And thank you very much to the VP. My question is, I'm sorry to take you to the past of the organization, but I just realized there's no other way I can present this in the best way. So what it is, previously, somebody, when they join the party, the way I, expected to spend about 5 years, learning the party ideology also before they could be appraised to any leadership positions. Now that we are a new organization, and there are people with potential, there are people with grassroots connections and so forth. Are we considering all of us, as being at level 0 or in year 1, where we are going to be given the ideology and then we'll be assessed accordingly?
Thank you. Please go ahead, Tendai.
Unfortunately, my connection dropped. So if you can kindly repeat the question.
Lauren, can you quickly repeat the question so that he can hear you?
Okay, the question is, in the past, when we get new members on board, they were expected to at least stay 5 years getting acquainted with the party ideology before they can be considered for leadership positions. Now that we are all new and we are going to get all new recruitees, new members with a potential, some well connected to the community and so forth, Are we considering everybody to be at level 0, or in year 1 we are all learners?
Thank you very much. It's a very important question. We are now all founding members.
Okay.
The movement was formed on the 24th of January 2025. So there's no member like me with 20 years experience. There's no member like that. So the old MDC constitution says you're not eligible to stand for anything unless you had 5 years in the party. Now we are all on zero. Now we are all on zero. Now, and this is so important because it means that when we go to communities, it's not going to be the person in the party structure who is a gatekeeper to a position because he or she has done 20 years. It's now the community saying, in this area, even though Headmaster Zuz has not been coming to your meetings a lot, doesn't even have your t-shirt, doesn't even know your slogan, but he's our best candidate. He's organic. My Duve here in Emagoshini Enkai, she's our best candidate. That's the importance of moving to the citizen. That's the importance of taking people from the periphery to the center. And I've absolutely no doubt in my mind that we will avoid the situation where the party, the old party that is, has been recruiting from the same point and recycling the same characters, the ZANU-PF, in a way. So you will see a marked difference. But part of the things that we failed to attract in the past, we failed to attract new people because those who were there became gatekeepers. Those who were there became gatekeepers. And yet, we have got wonderful people that speaking at a personal level, I drove through Mrewa the other day. Mrewa Center, and someone, a citizen, came to me. By citizen, I'm being a member of the Yellow Brigade, and said, do you know Hopewell comes from there? I said, Hopewell comes from there. I don't know. I come from Chendambo. He says, yeah, he comes from there. He says, so you are very lucky you got Hopewell. Yeah, we hope he can be MP for Murewa North. Then I said, it's a very good thing, but I know he stays in Highlands. So maybe you'll be MP for Highlands. But that's the point. That's the point about shifting to citizens. That's the point about shifting. Because the party becomes territorial. There are gatekeepers there. There are warlords there. The party becomes territorial. Now, on the 24th of January 2025, we gave back the thing. Takadzorera chinhu kuvaridzi vazvo, vane vevhu, the owners of this thing, Wanjiku, Wananji, Walalahoi, Vanhu, Povo.
Thank you very much. It was 25 January 2022, Vice President.
What did I say?
He said 2025.
Oh, I'm 5 years ahead.
No, thank you very much. Since I asked for the request to retweet, we have got now 850 pounds has been donated. Thank you very much for all the people that have donated so far. 850 pounds has been donated. I make that request again. We are 4,000. Please, those that haven't retweeted yet, could you please retweet the fundraiser? The tweet has been pinned on this space. Please go ahead and retweet. It costs nothing to retweet. And if you want change, you have to contribute either through donations or just helping us spread the message. And the best way to spread the message is through retweets. I want to tell you a short story. In Zambia, they made sure that everybody would share on Facebook, they would repost on Instagram, they would retweet on Twitter, and they raised a lot of money. The victory of President Hakainde Hichilema was delivered by the citizens. And it's important for all of us to understand that we have a civic duty to assist those that we've asked to lead the coalition for us. We help them by making sure that we donate, whether it's $1 or 50 cents or just a retweet. It will go a long way. So please Asking you again to retweet for those that haven't retweeted. As I told you earlier, these retweets work wonders. So far, we've got $850 in the £850 in the last 1 hour. So it works. Please retweet. It will go a long way in helping delivering the change that we all want. Mr. Chinamora, please go ahead.
Thank you, Hopewell, and good evening, Vice President. My question is around the upcoming 2023 elections, around the election agents. Are we going to avoid the scenarios that we have had before, where ZANU-PF had other polling stations where we couldn't cover agents? Do we have enough mechanizations to protect the vote? Because we can encourage people to vote and people will go and vote and Nelson Chamisa will win. But are we putting enough measures to protect that vote? And this includes making sure that we have enough polling agents that covers all the polling stations in the country, because we know good and well that ZANU-PF is preparing to rig 2023. They know they will not win. So we must not leave room for them to do whatever they want in certain polling stations where we have failed to field agents. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Tendai.
Yeah, it's a very important question. You know, because of contradictions and fights, we didn't run a technically sound election in 2018. So we scored on goals. Like, for instance, there that we lost because we double candidates under the moniker of MDC Alliance. And we had thousands of polling stations without people. Even those that we had people, they were not adequately trained. And even up to now, Monzora is still not paid some election agents. So it is going to be so important for our coalition to run a technically competent, modern election. And that begins with the campaign. The campaign must be up to scratch, the president's campaign, the campaign head office, the president's, the message, the issues, the manifesto, or a blueprint, which, by the way, we've already started, working on. Community issues. Each community must have its own manifesto. The media work, the visuals. This color yellow is just brilliant for media people like Mkoma Opel. The jingles. There is no struggle without a soundtrack. The Beatles had a hit in the 60s called Yellow Submarine. We want our Yellow Submarine hit to be the soundtrack of our revolution, next year. But apart from the campaign, it is the technical election. Now, that one, we have to pay attention to detail. The issue of election agents, the issue of election monitors, the issue of real-time results being posted to your command centers, your paro voter tabulation, how do you protect the vote, the issue of collection of the V11 forms, the V22 forms. We have to be up to scratch. In 2008, we did very well. And we did very well because we outsourced to the citizen the issue of election monitoring. So we had hundreds of students that we took from the University of Zimbabwe, from African University, and so forth, that we deployed in the rural areas. I ran that campaign by 8 o'clock. By 8 o'clock, I knew that we had beaten ZANU-PF. And many of you will remember the press conferences we were having at the Mikus Hotel declaring these results. In 2013, it was different. ZANU-PF stifled our paro voter tabulation. We couldn't, by 4 o'clock, I hadn't spoken to a single of our team leaders in the countryside. So we have to be ready. We have to be ready. And we have to be ready in 2022. not in 2023. We are not going to win 2023 in 2023. We have to win 2023 in 2022 by having ready in 2022, including the candidates, including, fortunately, we now have the vehicle we're waiting for. We now have the colors that we're waiting for. The creative people must help us with the jingles, and so forth. So it's a journey, and trust me, we have to pay attention to details. An election is about he or she who pays the greatest attention to the minutest of detail. It's not about big moments. It's about small steps that are innocuous, that are boring, that are tedious. You have to get that right, and we intend to do that in 2023.
Thank you very much, Tendai, for that. I'd asked Tendai for an hour of his time. It's now an hour 51 minutes. So we'll try and pick in as much as we can. We've got 9 minutes to go. Keep your questions tight. Zula, please go ahead. Zula, if you can hear me, unmute your microphone and please go ahead. Okay, she seems to be having problems. Toots, please go ahead. Toots, your microphone is muted. Can you hear me? Okay, we seem to be having problems there. Akai, Ian, please go.
Thanks, Hopewell. Mr. Biti, if tomorrow Mr. Mwanzora wakes up and says that he's realized the error of his ways and he would like to bring his two supporters over to CCC, will there be room for him? And this applies to any current or former ZANU-PF supporters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's yeah. So I think this is the most difficult I've been asked the whole evening. Yeah, look, we have to forgive. We have to forgive. But forgiveness doesn't mean that you're not cautious. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you throw winds to the dust. Part of the reason why we were able to do what we did without anyone knowing, we were cooking this thing, but nobody knew. Nobody knew. And one of the reasons why is because in the old standing committee, we lost half of it to Douglas. So we had people that had infiltrated us right at the top who were gone. So that judgment, yes, we lost members, but part of the process was actually a cleansing exercise. So we took everyone by surprise. Everyone by surprise. But I don't know. I can't disclose some of the things, but it has been a process. It has been a journey. And things we had to do was to double speak. So I was watching an interview that I did in which I said, there's the name MDC is like a brand, it's like Coca-Cola. But in the next vein, I was saying, we're going to do things on our own time and so forth. So a person listening carefully saying, are they going to change or they're not going to change? We have to do that double speak. So we will forgive. We're not gods. The Lord's Prayer says we must forgive. And accept. We're not gods after all. But forgiveness is also not opening yourself up. Forgiveness is also not opening up. I genuinely believe that. That there are now some people in the opposition masquerading as opposition that are probably more ZANU-PF than ZANU-PF itself. There are some people without any iota values at all. Iota of values. I was a lawyer representing my colleagues, Chante, Prosper Mtseami, Lillian Timvios, when they were chased away from Parliament. And someone saw an affidavit that we fired them because they now belong to a party called MDC Alliance. We fired them on affidavit. Douglas Montora saw an oath. The next thing he now goes and says, I'm MDC Alliance. Look, I'll forgive, but I don't think forgiveness should be equated to stupidity. So I think we will forgive. We will heal. People go through divorces, so people heal, people forget, and so forth. And time is the best. Time is the best healer. I've no doubt. I've no doubt about it. I think for me, people can have point of differences, but you can't cross to the other side. And I think Mr. Montora's greatest weakness is that he crossed over to the devil. He's part of the devil. You have private meetings with Emerson Mnangagwa. You plot to destroy. You built a campaign on destroy. His whole campaign was targeted at theft of people who would have been confused by MDC or whatever MDC acronym, suffix or prefix we're going to use. And it can't work, and it won't work. So yes, we will forgive, we will heal. Yes, we will heal, but it's a process, and it takes two to tango. If we could work with Robert Mugabe, I remember my first cabinet meeting on Monday, on Tuesday, the 17th of February, 2009. He sat there in a nice suit. He spoke wonderful English, as all of us know. I couldn't reconcile. The Robert Mugabe who had tortured me in 2008 at Goromons, tortured me, beaten me up, tortured Morgan Tsvangirai, tortured Nelson Chamisa, tortured Nelson Mangoma, Sekai Holland, Grace Pinje, and so forth, with the Robert Mugabe that was chairing that cabinet meeting. But I guess if we could work with Robert Mugabe, if we could forgive Robert Mugabe to be so sufficiently approximate, then we can work with anyone. That it doesn't mean that we throw caution to the wind. It doesn't mean that we ignore the reports of our own intelligence department. It doesn't mean that we become stupid. It's a process. It's a process. So yes, we'll forgive. After all, we're Christians. We didn't declare ourselves as a Christian party, but we are Christians. We are God fearing, and the God we worship tells us to forgive. I bumped into Chombo the other day in a restaurant. At some levels, I wasn't angry. Because I just realized that ultimately, he's a nobody. The system is the system. So let's dismantle, the system. So that's my answer, comrade. Forgiveness is a permanent part of humankind. I've seen, as a lawyer, I've seen people who divorce for 40 years, who reconcile and live happily ever after. One of my favorite novels is the book Love in the Time of in the time of cholera. A man and a woman spent 50 years apart, but they found each other and they moved on. So we have to be forgiving. We have to be forgiving.
Thank you very much. I will make that request again. Please go to the pinned tweet and retweet for those who haven't retweeted it. In the past 1 hour, the figure donated is now gone up to £1,200. We are now on £1,200 since the first request to retweet the tweet. So please, could you retweet the tweet? And those who can donate, please donate whatever you can, whether it's $1, whether it's £100, whether it's £200. Every cent, every penny counts. Every little helps, as they say in the Tesco's advert. So please, I'm asking again, we are more than 4,000. Can we retweet if you haven't retweeted yet? As you can see, these retweets work. In the past 1 hour, we've raised 1,200 pounds. So please keep retweeting. For those who haven't retweeted, I ask again, please retweet. Professor Mpofu, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Hopewell, and good evening, everyone. My question quickly is, what role, if any, would former ZANU-PF folk willing to join and contribute to the new movement play, like people like Professor Moy, I think, contribute struggle before under the MDC alliance? And also, you say that you are sort of an open church, as it were. How will you take care and cater for infiltration? How will you avoid infiltration from state agents, since it seems that you sort of have opened it up for everyone? And lastly, do you have any other solid mechanisms of protecting the vote and victory besides encouraging people to turn out in large numbers to vote? If those large numbers are sort of drowned by the rigging of ZANU-PF, do you have any other mechanisms that will cater for that, or that will sort of help you to fight and reclaim your victory? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, VP.
So let me start on the last one, which is the easier one. As I said, we have called 2022 the year of citizens action for change, citizen action for change. So one of the things that one of the pillars of that is obviously the reform agenda and electoral reform. So our president is going to unveil this. So I don't want to preempt what he's going to say on elections and the 8 things that he's going to talk, which covers some of the things that you are asking me and the other things and which other colleagues have already asked about. So I would ask that you just bear with us. But in any event, some of the things are already in our prize document and also in our reload document and previous documents. So yes, I don't want to preempt that. On the, I've seen a lot of fights on Twitter, on Facebook, and a lot of anger against people like Professor Jonathan Moyo. And I think citizens need to realize that what is the bigger picture here? What is the bigger picture? The bigger picture here is that we require all hands on deck. We require all hands on deck. We will require all cats in the field. We require all cats in the field. So we can't be territorial. It's one of the problems of a political party. It's territorial. It protects its staff. You can't join us because we are Anglican and you are Catholic. You can't join us because we saw you with a traditional healer the other day. In a citizen formation, you must know that there are citizens. Never it's not over. So if you don't know that in our coalition, so the point I'm making is that let's focus on the bigger picture, but we need all hands on deck. But that is not to say we don't have an intelligence department, we don't protect ourselves, we don't guard against the infiltration. So let's focus. And part of the thing that people can't understand, that citizens should not overlook is the how we have been victims of ZANU-PF, including members of ZANU-PF itself. I want to ask you, comrades, a fair question, citizens, a fair question. If we were to have a plebiscite, a referendum in Zimbabwe, and ask the people of Zimbabwe, let's start with the ZANU-PF question. By ZANU-PF question, I mean an issue that will affect ZANU-PF members more than citizens. The issue of title deeds to those who benefited from land. If you were to ask someone who was the beneficiary of a farm model A1 scheme in Macheke there, they will tell you that we want title deeds, but ZANU-PF will never give people, title deeds. Now I want to ask a question that resonates with everyone. If you were to take a poll amongst ZANU-PF members and say, do you want to use the US dollar or not? The bulk will say, we want to use the US dollar. So hard to come up against a person who has not been a victim of ZANU-PF. Are you telling me? That's why I said we are all members. We founded this organization on the 24th of January 2022, Nkoma Hope, not 2025. So if that is the case, we require all hands on deck, focused on the bigger picture, which is achieving transformation in Zimbabwe, which is achieving a new great Zimbabwe. And I know we'll achieve this, and I know that 2023 is going to be a divine year, a year of the people's victory. If we call the 2022 this year for citizens' convergence for change, to the year of action, then I have no doubt that there will be citizens' victory in 2023.
Thank you very much. As we wrap up, I would like to remind everyone that this conversation is being recorded. You can share the link on your Twitter handles for those that have not been able to join us tonight. Some are working. I can imagine nurses in London in wards working. They would have wanted to be part of this, but because recording it, they can always go back and listen tomorrow, and it will be available for the next 30 days. So pin the conversation on your Twitter handles so that your friends and your followers who haven't who were not able to join us tonight will be able to listen to the conversation at any time, at a time of their own choosing in the next 30 days. And again, retweet the pinned tweet so that more people can donate. Over 40 people have donated in the past 1 hour, and I imagine that some of you are in this conversation in this Twitter space. Thank you very much for that. There is no struggle that will be won without assistance. Even during the liberation struggle, our mothers were contributing. If they didn't have money, they would give a chicken, they would give a goat. That was part of their contribution. There is nothing that is won without sweat. And in terms of communication, as I've said before, it's important for you to continuously retweet things that are talking about the struggle, that be a central point or a primary point for us to be able to communicate with each other. In 1979, they did not have social media, but ZANU, at that point in time in Maputo, they had a radio station. General Tongogara always talked about the importance of communication, the importance of talking to people. They used the Chinese philosophy of going into the communities and talking to them because people are educated. So if we don't use social media, we will not be able to communicate because we don't have radio stations like ZANU. We don't have a TV station like ZANU. We don't have newspapers like ZANU. The only thing that we have, the only tool we have at our disposal is social media. So please use social media. When you see messages that are being tweeted either by the leaders or by ourselves as citizens, and you think that this message is important, it must be heard, please retweet it. It doesn't cost a penny to do so. As we round up, I will go to Curate, and then after Sada Curate, we go to Tsitsi. Please go ahead, Sada Curate.
Thank you. My question was just in line with what you have just said, in that yes, there's a euphoria for the yellow, the new political party CCC, and yes, mostly in the urban areas where people have access to Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. But the main reason why the ZANU-PF does not want to put this news on ZBC and on their other print media is because there are people in the rural areas who still rely on ZTV for their news and for the radio stations. So maybe if the Vice President can just touch a bit on that, what's the plan to make the CCC a household name now, so that come the 2023 elections, when the President Chamisa will be going, I assume, around the country, it will be sort of like a round two, because we don't want to work on the assumption that Tese Tiripano on Twitter, we know what's happening, but we don't want to make an assumption that the people in the rural areas, because we need every vote. So we don't want to make an assumption that some people know. We want to make calculated moves. So maybe if we can touch on that, just to make sure that how can we make the CCC a household name now. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, VP.
Thank you, Hopewell. Part of my question has been addressed, so I'm just going to rephrase. What efforts are being made to cultivate the culture or a strong culture of donating in order to increase preparedness against unexpected adverse events that may arise during the election period, and some which require a short turnaround time to raise funds? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tendai Biti, please go ahead. Your microphone is muted. Unmute your microphone. Vice President Biti, can you hear me? Whilst we are waiting for him to reconnect, Nicole G, please go ahead.
Thank you, Hopper, for the opportunity. My question is, how is the movement going to recruit more people with capability in leadership to take the movement forward? I think what Tendai has mentioned is doing away with the gatekeeper syndrome. So how are you going to ensure you've got more people with capability? I'm also looking at probably trying to recruit people from the diaspora who have capability to move the movement forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dent.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with the last question. Look, one of the difference between a political party per se and a movement is the culture of volunteerism and voluntarism. So we expect the citizens themselves to be proactive, to volunteer. So I want to be an election agent. I want to do this. I saw it at work in Zambia. In Zambia, as you know, Zambia is very divided. The North, largely Bemba speaking, they supported PF. The South, the Tongas and so forth, HH. But people realize that to win the election, we have to run a national campaign. So you had people going to camp, and I mean for months, in the northern parts of Zambia, territories which were equivalent to Uzumba Maramba Fungwe. Very impenetrable places, volunteers. So we hope volunteers can come aboard. We hope that we will not have the top-down approach that so far arrested the old political party that we have left. The top-down approach that you send people, you deploy people. You want to be invited by community of business people, community of church leaders, community of elders, community of traditional leaders, community of students in Mzarabani, in Chendambuya, in Victoria Falls, in Binga, that says we're doing this, we've done this, we're doing this, we've done that. So I hope citizens can come to the front. And as I said at the beginning, we are moving people from the periphery to the center. We're giving back the People's Project back to the people. So so when we say citizen, we mean it. And if you saw what we did, that's exactly how we hope this will actualize. We want to give it to the people. Volunteerism is going to be a big, big thing. And when President Chamisa makes his speech, you hear him talk a lot about volunteerism. When we move to communities now, I said we're all starting from zero. And I said that, in the past, the gatekeeping mentality has been there. But if you go to communities, the community knows what it wants. It knows its heroes. It knows its heroines. It knows who can do what at what position and at what juncture. And the community doesn't lie. And part of the reasons why we did so well in 2000, because the candidates we fielded at the time in the movement were outstanding citizens in their communities, people who stood up in their communities, people who had long distinguished themselves in their communities. So the represent parliament became a representation of the community. Think of in Bulawayo, for instance, think of Paul Tebanyati, David Coltart, even Eddie Cross before he lost it. Those were genuine people. We had stood with the people for many years through thick and thin. In Harare, with people like Mike Oret, the late and great, Lenmo Jongwe, and so forth. People that had stood with people for many years. So that's the template we are going to go to, bringing people to the center, away from the cold shadows of periphery, bringing people to the center, accountable to the people. But the problem with this country is that the citizen has never mattered. The citizen has never mattered. And we've had an organization, ZANU-PF, which substituted itself for the people many years ago. So when we started, in 1980, ZANU was the people. Even Mukanya would sing ZANU, Vanu, Vanu is ZANU. But the Politburo, the Central Committee substituted itself for the people. So the people became the Central Committee of ZANU. Over time, the Politburo substituted itself for the Central Committee, which Central Committee has substituted itself for the people. Over time, the President, Mugabe, substituted himself for the Politburo, which Politburo has substituted itself for the Central Committee, which Central Committee has substituted itself for the citizen. That must go. The complete takeover by the people, by an elite, through a process of substitutionalism. And we're trying to end that in the new exciting yellow agenda that we've embarked on, the citizen agenda. Then the first question, the rural penetration. I've been spending a lot of time in the rural areas. In fact, literally since the 3rd of December, I've been spending a lot of time. And I can safely qualify to be called, a peasant farmer. People in Zimbabwe are ready for change. People in the rural areas are stuck in the 1920s. If we were to wake up Mbuyane and walk here up today, the only thing that may confuse you is that where they were putting on shashikos, they are now fully covered. But the roads have remained the same. The lack of development is the same. So the language of the rural area is the language of the urban area. The polity of the rural area is the polity of the urban area. And what is that polity? It's a polity for change. It's a polity for information. It's a polity for the real people issues that I've spoken of: health, housing, accommodation, education for their children, sustainable harvest, sustainable markets, sustainable yields. The average hectare in the communal lands yields 0.7 tons per hectare. She also wants to produce 13 tons per hectare. You are punishing them with Fumfuza. You don't deliver ammonium nitrate. You don't deliver compound D. So the president is no longer interested. The rural people are no longer interested in your Fumfuza because you don't deliver. It's a promise to perpetuate the dependence syndrome that ZANU-PF has perpetuated in the last 22 years. So we need to work in those hope that can you urge everyone who is on this to either go to the rural or go to your rural home or find a way of communicating home and saying sekuru baba mai kwaita zviro zvinyowani kwaita chiro chitsva chevanhu chine kala yeyero chine mutsindo chinotungamirwa ngavachamisa. It will be so exciting. It will be so exciting. Carry that message home. We used to do it with the President Morgan Tsvangirai. We used to have a program that would say Hande Kumucha. So every Christmas, people to the rural home to preach the gospel of transformation. And here now it shouldn't be so difficult, because the biggest demographic in Zimbabwe are the youths. 69% of the population are below the age of 35. And guess what? They are unemployed. So let's turn them into volunteers who spend weeks in Uzumba Maramba Fungwe, weeks in Gwanda, in Bube, in Umguza, weeks in Lotito, weeks in Chendampuya, weeks in Kwamkarakati, weeks in Kwanzimbo, Kwachiweshe, weeks in Matepa, Kumashumbi, Mashonaland, West Central. That's what we need to do. Volunteerism, volunteerism, volunteerism. Let's be stakeholders. That's why we've given this thing to the people. And make a note of this name, Citizens Coalition for Change. What does it mean? Citizens are going to work. Citizens are going to own. But how are these citizens going to be involved? They're going to be involved in coalitions. We're going to bring everyone on board. So the purity and authoritarian heresy of a political party which is monocentric, it looks at the card-carrying member. We've abandoned it and given it to the people for change. And change stands for transformation. Change stands for new methods of intervention, of interrogation, of dialogue in order to establish a new consensus. So those who write about this movement years from now must understand that there is a theoretical foundation to everything that we are doing. There's an ideological foundation that we are doing. And we are very clear. We are very clear beyond reasonable doubt what we are trying to do, where we are going, where we are coming from. We come from a proud past, the past of Gibson Sibanda. The past, someone asked whether we had betrayed Morgan Tsvangirai. We haven't. But that past got arrested by its own contradictions. So we had to declare independence. We had to declare independence, and that's what we did on the 24th of January 2022. So it's an exciting journey. When you history, my favorite artist is Linton Kwesi Johnson. I know that the historian Miles Tendi also likes him. One of his best albums is Making History. When you are making history, you are at the center, at the crest of a wave. It moves in multiple motions. Sometimes the water goes this way, sometimes the water goes this way, but ultimately the water moves, and that's where we are. That's where we are. It's exciting, and let's all be part of it. It's a revolution. Look at the yellow graphic that exploded in the last 2 days. It's history, and some people that you would have never thought they would associate themselves with movement, they've bought into the idea. So when an idea is ready, no bullet can stop it.
We seem to have lost Vice President.
That is not stoppable. And this yellow revolution marks the ultimate change. And remember, wherever there is a cataleptic upheaval, there's always a change of name. There's always a change. Paul, the greatest apostle of Jesus, was called Saul. The nation of Israel was founded, is the name of a man called Jacob. So it's a revolution. It's a revolution, and we're reaching the end game. ZANU itself started off, the nationalist movement started off in the UANC, the NPD, then ZAPU, then ZANU. And a lot of you don't know that ZANU became ZANU-PF only in 1980 for the purposes of the 1980 election. ZANU-PF didn't exist. It was ZANU Patriotic Front because they wanted to bring ZANU and ZAPU together. So these things mark their historical moments. You capture historical moments. You create historical moments. And that's exactly what we are doing. That's exactly what we did yesterday. We created the historical moment. And in the process, we triggered two things, turning points and tipping points, all in one. And you will see.
Thank you very much, Vice President BT, for that very insightful conversation with the citizens. I'd like to thank everybody who came on board to listen. I want to encourage the leaders for the new Citizens Coalition for Change to also make it a habit to tweet things like the Citizens Coalition for Change fundraiser. As citizens, we look up to you as leaders. You give direction. What you do sometimes inspires us. So sometimes when citizens don't see you tweeting these fundraisers, they think they are not important. So it's also part of leadership responsibility to give direction and to inspire citizens through your actions. And retweeting things that really matter towards the struggle for our emancipation from corrupt. So I'd like to ask all the leaders of the Citizens Coalition for Change to retweet the fundraiser. From time to time, encourage citizens, encourage your followers to do the same because they get inspired. When they see you as leaders not doing it, they assume it's not important. I would like to thank everyone who came on board. And in the spirit of the last person who asked the question about volunteering, volunteer important. You can do it in so many ways. What I'm just doing now, I've just volunteered my time and service and skill as a journalist to deliver this conversation between the citizens and Vice President Tendai Biti. You can also do it in your own way. You know your strengths, you know the things that you can do in order to enhance the coalition, in order to enhance the struggle against corrupt rule. Like Martin Luther King said, everybody can be great because anyone and anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. That is what we all need to do. So before we go, Komatindai, can you give us your closing remarks and the things that you want us to take home? We seem to have lost him there. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It was a very good conversation with the Vice President for the Citizens Coalition for Change. And I would like to thank you all for coming on board. Have a good night.
This is Yobuda TV, hakudima CV, Sly Media TV, and sport and dream street in Azona and Japa News, and Aka Wandro name of views, Sly Media TV, Mandi Chinjira Ang Madrid.